So Murchison Falls National Park is definitely the jewel in Uganda's crown in terms of how many lions remain and in terms of how carnivores are doing. That is the place to really protect. So if you look at the Nile Delta, there's some of the highest densities of lions anywhere in Africa are in the Nile Delta. So that's the lion front. On the leopard agenda, the parks that are doing very well are Lake Mburo. So that's really a leopard hotspot in the country, and I think it's one that's very important in terms of a conservation agenda. Murchison Falls, again, the Nile Delta, probably some of the highest leopard densities you'll find anywhere in Africa are in the Nile Delta. So if there's any place in Uganda to see leopards, it's actually in the Delta. It's one of the best places. Like you will see leopards there on almost every game drive.
In this week's episode, we discuss the incredible world of large carnivores. I'm joined by 3 experts, you might call them scientists, and we'll take a long drive into the world of large carnivores. And we'll also briefly discuss the yet-to-be-launched Uganda Large Carnivore Strategic Action Plan. On the show this week, I'm excited to have Dr. Alex Braczkowski, a career conservation biologist and wildlife photographer, whose work has been featured on platforms like Disney Plus and National Geographic. I'm also excited to have Bosco Atukwase and Orin Cornille, who are both field coordinators currently working with the large carnivores in Uganda. Dr. Alex joins the podcast from Brisbane, Australia, while Orin, I believe, will be tuning in, or rather joining us from Belgium. Bosco, I believe, joins us from somewhere deep within the Ugandan jungle, following lions and elephants, and we should have an exciting discussion. Just a reminder, the Jonathan Bernard podcast is not only inspired by nature and travel, but by the people who work in it and those that are passionate about it. The podcast is made available by our Patreons, and this week's episode is specifically sponsored by my good friends at Zencastr. This week's episode goes live this Sunday, and you will be able to access it on whichever platform you access your podcast from. And if you are looking for a spoiler, we will also have an exclusive sneak peek into the latest statistics for both lions and leopards in Uganda. This comes from a census that's been carried out by Dr. Alex and his team, and it's been carried out in several of the country's protected areas. So you will surely want to tune in. I'm your host, Jonathan Benaya, and this is the Jonathan Benaya Podcast.